Welcome to Ecclesia Principles, a biblical strategy for believers to engage in God's design for government with Ray Eppard.
Hello, glad you could join us again today. And right now, we are looking at the various ways that government has and can attack the family unit. We need to be very aware of these. Now, Romans 13:4 tells us that this is God's design, is for the government officials. It says, and I'm just going to read the A section, for he is God's minister to you for good. That's God's design. But as with all humans, we have a free will. We have the power of choice. That's why we have to give an account to God for what we do. Government officials, their role is to be for the good of the people. But they don't always do that. And history is filled with cases where that was not done. And they have to give an account to God for how they have done things and how they've handled things. With this, I want to look at the idea and history of slavery, very briefly, of course, with our little section here. But you see, unfortunately, there were people that tried to use scriptures to make slavery a part of what America was. Now, there are scriptures that certainly leave different things, but when you look at it, when you go back to what God established for the nation of Israel, there were certain provisions in there. When you take it as a whole, we can certainly see that slavery is not God's idea. It's not something he desires or wants. Now, because actually he told them, and you know, the old song, "The slave is my brother," that really comes from the Bible. And when you take that concept, if they would have treated the slave like their brother, they wouldn't have been a slave. They'd have found a way to free them from that. And so, you know, our history does have its problems on this issue. But what I'm wanting to talk about today is how, you see, at that point, the people were property of their owners. Their children belonged to their owners. And through that, one of the ways that they went about keeping slavery intact was the destruction of the nuclear family. That at that point, particularly the children, they would separate them, they would sell them off, they would do different things. That was a common practice, because in breaking down that nuclear family, it breaks down the spirit, it breaks down the will, and so with that, when we look in our world today, we can see that same thing being done in a very subtle form. You will hear this phrase today: the children are all of our children. Now, that's being put in a seemingly good context. In other words, we all have a responsibility toward the next generation. And I agree with that concept wholeheartedly. But see, here's the problem. They're not saying we have a responsibility to the next generation. They're saying the children are all our children. You see, at that point, the master said that the slave's children were their children. They wasn't talking about next generation. And see, the thing of it is important for you to listen to how things are worded. If you would, when you hear government officials talking about all the children are our children, they're really talking about they're the government's children. And you better be careful. God bless you. See you tomorrow.
You've been listening to Ecclesia Principles with Ray Eppard. Follow us on YouTube and Facebook on our Ray Eppard pages. This program was brought to you by Victory Worship Center and World Outreach. Services Sunday 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock, 200 Hammond Lane, Stanton, Virginia.